Golden State Warriors are at the end of the Stephen Curry dynasty, and it's time to really talk about, are they an actual championship contender this year? At the beginning of the season, I thought that they were. I know this team is very old. We'll talk about that in just a little bit, but I'm going to present the four major problems that plague the Warriors this season and potentially offer some solutions on how they can get better and still contend for an NBA championship. Now, this is a little bit more far-fetched than I thought that it would be at the start of the season, but nonetheless, let's talk about the general overview of the team. For starters, as of this recording, the Warriors are 8th in the Western Conference. They're 11 and 11. They actually have a positive scoring differential, but 4 and 8 on the road. They've had some brutal Eastern Conference road trips to start the season. They're 5 and 6 against teams with a 500 or better record, and they have the fifth toughest remaining strength of schedule. So this is going to be a major uphill battle for the Warriors going forward. At home, I think they perform pretty well. They have big wins over the Lakers, the Nuggets. They played the Thunder very competitively without Stephen Curry at home. The Warriors have been known for their home dominance over this Stephen Curry era, but like I said, it's kind of coming to a close. As we could see over the last 3 or 4 seasons, injuries have piled up, and on top of that, player performances have started to dip. Speaking of player performances, let's talk about Draymond Green. Now 35 years old, this is where the age comes into factor for Green. He has his worst defensive rating in his career. This is one of the worst seasons that he's had defensively. He actually is averaging less than a block and less than a steal for the first time in almost 15 seasons, I think. So we're getting close to that era where Draymond Green is no longer known as an elite defender. I still think that he is. His IQ does a lot of favors for him throughout the course of the game. However, the athletic ability and or the ability to defend on the perimeter is starting to dip, and that is why his defensive rating is at the worst point in his career. Offensively, worst assist to turnover ratio in 10 plus seasons. He's only averaging 5.7 assists and he's averaging 3.1 turnovers. I still think he is a good playmaker. The problem is that his sloppy play is leading to multiple transition points for opponents. That is a major issue with Green on the court, not to mention that he has his worst field goal percentage since his rookie season, despite taking the most field goal attempts since 2017. So Green is shooting more shots than he has in almost 10 years, and he's not converting those shots into buckets. Is that a shot selection issue, or is that a conversion issue due to things like lack of athletic ability? To me, he hasn't really dipped in his shooting. So it's not that he has like a bad 3-point shot. I mean, he does have a strange jumper to say the least, but his 3-point shot has really not taken a dip. If you look at his career averages, his conversions at the basket have been the major issue. And that could be due to a fact of, a declining athletic ability. So Green having one of the worst years of his career as of right now. A lot of that points to the fact that he's just 35 and or not even slowly, he's pretty much out of his prime now. So that's going to be a major issue for the Warriors going forward. Then I want to talk about Jonathan Kuminga. To me, this is the number one problem with the Golden State Warriors when it comes to personality. I'm going to get into the 4 major statistical problems, but this one right here is a personability issue. As of right now, I do calculations of weighted stats based off of things like points per 100 possessions, VORP, offensive rating, defensive rating, turnover percentage, assist percentage. These are just some of the statistical categories where Kuminga is playing at probably some of the worst rates in the league, and that's why out of 267 players, he was in the 33rd percentile, which is atrocious for a player that plays as much time as he does. He's 244th out of 267 in VORP, meaning there are realistically around 200 or so players that if you replaced their minutes, usage, and other stats with Jonathan Kuminga, those other players would perform at a higher level than Kuminga. Now, VORP is just one category of statistics that I take into account. I'm looking at offensive rating. On the Warriors, who have been known as an offensive juggernaut for the past decade, he's 229th out of 267 players in offensive rating. He's 248th out of 267 in turnover percentage. He does not see the ball that much, and yet he's averaging over 2 turnovers per game. That is a major problem. Now, personability-wise, there have been major contract disputes between him and the Golden State Warriors. I don't think he wants to play with them anymore. Steve Kerr and him have had multiple issues. There have been points towards his maturity, his lack of development. He was averaging over 16 points per game 2 seasons ago. Right now, he's at 13 points per game, despite playing, I think, the most minutes in his career to this point. That is going to be a major sticking point for the Golden State Warriors for the rest of the season. We've already seen multiple locker room press conferences where players like Draymond Green call out Kuminga almost by name, asking him to step up and play better. And quite frankly, so far this year, he has not done that. Now, with Stephen Curry being injured over the next few games, maybe he could step up like he did in the Western Conference semifinals against the Timberwolves and shine. That still has yet to be seen on a consistent level, especially in the regular season. Steve Kerr is going to have no choice but to give him more of a workload. Surely we'll see these numbers be better than bottom 10% of or bottom third of the league, But I doubt that these numbers are going to creep up above the 50th percentile. And that to me is a major problem. And the primary reason why Jonathan Kuminga has not gotten a long-term contract extension from the Warriors, and quite frankly, why he hasn't gotten other major qualifying offers from other teams. And that's why he's with the Warriors right now on a qualifying offer. So those are just the 2 players that stuck out to me and the reasons why the Warriors are struggling right now. Let's look at the Warriors holistically, and let's talk about the 4 major problems that they have right now. Number 1, wing defense. They have a good 3-point opponent field goal percentage from 3. However, to me, that's not due to the fact that they're defending the 3 terribly well. They're 19th in 3-pointers contested. They have the 5th worst field goal percentage allowed, not from just 3, but allowed from 15 feet and beyond. This is a Warriors team that is aging a little bit, and that is not allowing them to spread the floor on the defensive side of the basketball. I am very worried for their ability to go up against elite teams and defend the 3. We look at some of these volume shooting teams like the Minnesota Timberwolves with Anthony Edwards. We saw him kind of pick apart in some games of the Western Conference semifinals last year, pick apart that Warriors wing defense. Jimmy Butler is really the only, in my opinion, elite wing defender on this Warriors team. You know, I used to say that Draymond was as well, but I just don't think he gets the job done as well as he used to. Pods, of course, is a capable defender. Moses Moody provides a lot of effort, but I think this team, more than anything, is missing Andrew Wiggins. Wiggins, throughout that 2022 championship run, was by far the best defender on the team, and his ability to shut down the primary scorer for opposing teams was such a key part in his position on the Warriors. And a lot of people started to argue maybe he should have been Finals MVP in that 2022-2023 playoff run. And quite frankly, I don't disagree. I think Curry still should have won it, but I don't disagree that he was or should have been a part of the conversation. Now, he had all of those personal issues with the Warriors. He missed tons of games while going through that. I don't know if that's ever actually been discussed or disclosed on what that was, but the Warriors pretty much had no choice but to move on from him. But look at him now with Miami. He's doing a great job. He's in the top 20th, or he's in the top 20% of wing defenders throughout the NBA. And quite frankly, I think that's very missed on this Golden State Warriors team. So wing defense, problem number 1. Let's talk about problem number 2. That's the lack of size. Now, the Warriors have been known throughout this Curry era for their small ball lineups. The problem with that is now they don't really have a big man at all to relinquish some of these size issues. They are 21st in offensive rebound percentage, 24th in defensive rebound percentage, 22nd in rebound differential. They are allowing the 20th most points in the paint, and they're 20th in opponent points per paint. They're allowing the 10th most points in the paint per game, and they're 21st in blocks. A lot of this is pointing to a lack of size. Now, they signed Al Horford in the offseason. He's not really a big center. He was never known as an elite rim protector. Draymond Green, still, in my opinion, is that, but I think the Warriors need a rebounder. Green has never averaged more than, I believe, 8.5 rebounds per game. This is a Warriors team that plays at a slower pace right now, and quite frankly, a center would be a good addition to this team, especially one that can rim protect. So I think that is a key spot for the Warriors to fix. Right now, the rebounding is killing them. I think they're the third worst team in allowing second chance points at this point. And look at the point differential. That kind of makes up for it. And the Warriors would, quite frankly, win a lot of these games that they're losing if they could just rebound the basketball better. Problem number 3 is their age. And this, to me, is probably the most damning of the 4 problems. Curry is 37. I believe Jimmy Butler is 36. Draymond Green, 35. And Al Horford is 39. The biggest or the easiest way to define this age being an issue, when you're old, everybody talks about it. It takes more effort to get up, and it takes more effort to finish strong. Here are the 2 statistics that point to those things. The Warriors are 20th in first quarter scoring differential, meaning they start off games very slow. Next, they're 25th in fourth quarter scoring differential, meaning they are atrocious closing out games. I believe clutch scoring differential, they are the 7th worst team in the league in that. And this is coming from a team that, with Jimmy Butler and Stephen Curry, those are elite clutch scorers. Yet the Warriors are struggling. Why? I think it has to do with their age. It has to do with the fact that they're not finishing games. It might be an attrition issue. I don't think it's a conditioning one. I mean, look at Stephen Curry. I mean, he's been in the peak condition of any NBA player throughout the last decade or so. And last but certainly not least, to point to this age problem, the Golden State Warriors throughout the Curry era have been at least in the top 10 of pace every single season, except for the COVID year when Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond and all the important Warriors players missed almost the entire season. The Warriors are 14th in pace this year. They are usually the trendsetters for this. They are the reason why the NBA is the NBA today. 3-point heavy, as many possessions as possible. That is all due to the Golden State Warriors, yet they are now struggling in an era that they created. To me, this points to nothing else than their age. They've got to get younger. It's going to be hard to do that during the season because I don't know if you guys don't know this, but you cannot turn back Father Time in the middle of the year and or the offseason. Curry is going to be 38 in March. I believe Jimmy Butler will also be getting a year older. Al Horford might be 40 by the end of this season. It's hard for me to believe that these 4 players are going to make a playoff run that goes 17, 18, 19 games deep. That's hard for me to believe. Last but certainly not least, the 4th problem is turnovers. For some reason, this veteran roster is struggling with turnovers. I already mentioned it with Kuminga and Draymond Green, but they are giving up the 4th most turnovers per game, and that's leading to a ton of fast breaks. Now, the Warriors' transition defense is actually elite. However, I don't think that can continue to be the case when they give up the 4th most transition possessions throughout the NBA. They're 17th in fast break points allowed, which is actually not that bad considering that they give up tons of transition looks. Like I said, right now, their transition defense is elite. They're in the 97th percentile of the NBA in that statistic, but that will change. I will guarantee you that will change if they continue to turn the basketball over at the rate that they do. I think they're averaging over 15 turnovers per game. Some of it is just flat out sloppy work. I remember watching the Warriors versus, I believe, the Nuggets a few weeks ago, and Stephen Curry just had multiple turnovers where he threw the ball out of bounds. It made no sense. I think the Warriors are going to have to solve these issues if they want to compete for a championship. So here are two potential solutions, and maybe the Warriors will go both of these routes. But for starters, let's look at some wing players that could be on the trading block. Herb Jones, in my opinion, is maybe the best wing defender in the NBA. Plays for the Pelicans. They're obviously tanking. A deal for Kuminga for Herb Jones straight up, in my opinion, at this point is a great deal for both sides. The Pelicans will get a young asset that they could potentially extend. Meanwhile, the Warriors get a win-now player with a high IQ and an ability to defend on the wing, unlike Kuminga right now. Next is Jrue Holiday. This one I see as probably the least likely of all of these, just because the Warriors are already pretty guard heavy. Will Richard from Florida, the rookie, Moses Moody, Stephen Curry, Buddy Hield, Jrue Holiday. Can he play the three and defend the three? Yes, but I don't necessarily know if that's his primary role these days. Can he come off the bench and be extremely impactful? Absolutely. But I view that a little bit closer to the Chris Paul trade that the Warriors made a couple of years ago than I would trying to trade for one of these other guys. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, I think the Warriors could use some more shooting. Pods is a capable three-point shooter. Will Richard has shot the three well. Buddy Hield, of course, a very good shooter, and Stephen Curry, the best shooter on the planet. But having KCP out there as a capable wing defender who can also shoot the three is always helpful to a team like Golden State. Probably the most realistic out of all these trades is going to be Keon Ellis. This is a Kings team that is probably going to be in tank mode. Domantas Sabonis is going to miss a good chunk of the season with, I believe, a hamstring injury or a quad injury. So the Kings could be looking to sell off some assets, and I think Keon Ellis is an elite wing defender. He's a great shooter, perfect 3-and-D player for the Warriors to acquire. Free agent-wise, Ben Simmons, in my opinion, if he can play the defense that he's capable of, could be the realistic long-term replacement for Draymond Green. And I've been saying this for a few years. I love Ben Simmons and his game. He'll never develop into what he was supposed to be, but for what he is right now, an extremely capable defender that can guard 1 through 5, a good facilitator, a very capable rebounder, and an okay scorer at the basket, I think that's extremely useful for the Golden State Warriors. They could have Green and Simmons run alternating possessions there. When Green's on the bench, Simmons is out there doing Green's job and vice versa. But last but certainly not least, Keon Johnson. I haven't done a lot of research into him. I'm not sure if he's injured or not, but I think in terms of 3-and-D, he's a capable three-point shooter and he plays capable defense. You could probably get him on a relatively cheap deal. That's probably a far cry from what the Warriors are looking for, but I think he's still an option as a free agent that the Warriors could consider signing. These are the players that I think the Warriors should trade for or sign for their wing problem. To me, these are capable solutions, and the trades would not be so unrealistic that the Warriors just absolutely could not make them. Now let's talk about the big men. Now, I have a surprise one at the end that I didn't put on this list, but it's a very far-fetched trade. For starters, Jalen Smith kind of like Herb Jones, a kind of win now player, still has some development. I don't think he's nearly as polished as Herb Jones is. He seems a little raw, but at 25 years old, should be capable enough to defend the rim and or rebound. He's not the best of either, but he is a capable option. Now, Zubac for the Clippers, that's an option that I think, once again, is a little more far-fetched. But if the Clippers continue on this path, I think they'll be looking to have a fire sale towards the trade deadline on players that, quite frankly, are not going to be part of the future. And Zubac is probably not that. The most realistic out of all of these is Nick Claxton for the Brooklyn Nets. This is a Nets team that might be looking to get worse as the season goes on. They're trying to get that top 5 pick that they have yet to have since 2010. And Nick Claxton, to me, is a very capable rebounder, not a bad rim protector at all, and provides the size that the Warriors really need at that center position. He's also relatively young. I think he's 25 or 26 years old. He can provide the high energy effort that the Warriors need. But let's talk about free agents. Charles Bassey is one, Mo Bamba is the other. Both of these would be shot in the dark. Just try to fix the issue. Neither of these, in my opinion, would be solve the problem for the Warriors. And so I don't think the Warriors will go that route. But I put some free agents on there nonetheless. Now, last but certainly not least, a player that I did not put on this list that I think could be available for trade sometime in the near future, and one that the Warriors might want to consider signing or trading for, and it's quite frankly an experiment to say the least, but Anthony Davis might be open to be traded from the Dallas Mavericks. We've seen multiple rumors. Now, he is making $54 million. Jimmy Butler and Stephen Curry also $50+ million players. You would have to trade Draymond Green away. Of course, you would also have to trade away Jonathan Kuminga. And then you would also have to include a Buddy Hield in that deal, or maybe a Moses Moody. But I think if you also threw in the 2029 Lakers pick that I believe the Warriors have, I think that's enough to convince the Mavericks to sell Anthony Davis. I would love to see that for Golden State. Pairing Curry, Jimmy, and Anthony Davis together would be an elite trio as long as they're healthy. Of course, that statement in and of itself is a long shot. Curry has dealt with several injuries over the last few years. Jimmy Butler has had some very freak injuries over the last couple of seasons. And then Anthony Davis, of course, is known for his injury consistency. Those are big issues, but if you could somehow get all three players healthy, that's a massive big three that could contend for a championship, in my opinion. Of course, you would have to move on from Draymond Green, which I don't think most Warriors fans want. However, it's just the time, or it's the time of the year or the time of the dynasty to finally start moving on some of these pieces. The Warriors have already done it with Klay Thompson. I see no reason why they wouldn't do it with Draymond Green if it meant extending Curry's window to win another championship. So that's all that I have for you guys about the Golden State Warriors right now. These are the 4 major problems that really are preventing them from winning a championship. Their wing defense, their big men, or the lack of big men at least, their age, and their sloppiness with the basketball. All that being said, let me know if you think the Warriors should or could solve these problems during this season. Let me know any other trades or free agent targets that you would be thinking of for this team. I think there's a lot out there. It's just kind of hard to judge where the Warriors will go. If you can call a trade, I mean, you might as well sign yourself up to be the next Woj, because that's extremely hard to do. But thank you guys all so much for watching. Be sure to hit that like, comment, and subscribe button. It would be much appreciated. I love doing these videos for you guys. So thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.